Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are going super interesting and talking about the potential for 100% renewable energy systems in Africa.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. And if you are at all interested in the future of sustainability and, energy and climate change and all that, then this deep dive is definitely for you.
Yeah, this should be great.
So, to help us with this deep dive, we're going to be taking a look at some current research and, really trying to understand the opportunities and challenges of this massive transition over to 100% renewables. And
yeah, we're really diving deep into this research review that was recently published in the journal Joule.
Yeah, and it's fascinating stuff.
Definitely.
There's a really eye-opening statistic right at the beginning, and they say that there are more studies on 100% renewable energy for just Denmark than there are for the entire continent of Africa, which is pretty wild when you think about it.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy when you think about it, like just the sheer population difference.
Yeah, like Denmark's population is, I think it's smaller than like London or something.
Yeah.
So it really highlights a massive research gap.
Yeah, it's a huge gap, and especially given Africa's projected population growth, over the next few decades.
Right.
And the continent's really amazing potential for renewable energy.
Absolutely.
So this research gap could really impact, decision-making and slow down their transition.
It makes you wonder, like, why isn't there more research,
Right.
Africa has so much sunshine and wind and geothermal potential.
Yeah.
It seems like it's perfectly positioned to move away from fossil fuels.
It is. And what's interesting about this is that Africa isn't really starting from scratch.
Right.
When you look at their existing energy infrastructure in a lot of nations, it's actually underdeveloped compared to Europe or North America.
Okay.
So they actually have this really unique chance to kind of leapfrog ahead and build a clean energy system from the ground up.
So it's kind of like they're building a brand new house instead of trying to renovate an old one.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a blank canvas for renewable energy.
Okay, cool.
But this paper, while it highlights all this potential, also reveals some stark realities.
Okay.
So the researchers found that there are only 54 peer-reviewed articles that focus specifically on 100% renewable energy systems for Africa.
Wow.
Compare that to 750 globally.
Okay, so even with this leapfrogging potential, we're working with limited information.
Right.
So what does that actually mean for their energy future? How do you make decisions with so little research?
Yeah, that's the main concern, because without that, comprehensive localized research, it becomes much harder to plan and make investments.
Yeah.
So it could really prevent Africa from fully capitalizing on its green potential.
That makes sense. So what can we learn from the research that does exist? Where does Africa stand right now in terms of its electricity supply?
So it's a pretty diverse picture. Different regions rely on different sources. For instance, North and West Africa depend mainly on natural gas, while East and Central Africa rely heavily on hydropower.
Okay, so a one-size-fits-all approach isn't going to work.
Exactly.
Each region has its own starting point.
Right.
What about specific technologies? What's looking promising?
There's a very clear consensus that solar PV is going to be huge in Africa's renewable energy future.
Yeah, makes sense.
The continent has abundant sunshine, and the cost of solar is just plummeting, and it's incredibly versatile.
Right.
It works for both large-scale projects and smaller off-grid solutions.
Right. And we can't forget about the potential for, a solar-to-X economy, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Using that solar power to produce things like hydrogen or fuels or chemicals.
Exactly. It's like turning sunlight into a building block for a whole new industrial landscape.
I love it.
However, the research also highlights the importance of sector coupling.
Okay.
And that's basically the idea of integrating different energy-consuming sectors, for greater efficiency.
So it's about looking beyond just generating electricity.
Right.
We have to think about how to use that clean energy in transportation, heating, industrial processes, pretty much everything.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But there's a research gap here too. There aren't enough studies on sector coupling in Africa, particularly for what they call hard to abate sectors, things like long haul transport and heavy industries.
So we know solar is likely to be a big player, but we need to figure out how to apply it to those tougher areas to decarbonize.
Right.
That's a big challenge.
It is. And that leads us to another important concept, transition pathways.
Okay.
The paper emphasizes moving beyond what they call overnight analysis, which just gives us a snapshot of a future year with 100% renewable energy, and instead focusing on how we get there.
So instead of just seeing the destination on a map, we need turn-by-turn directions.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need more research that outlines those specific steps, needed in policy, technology, adoption, infrastructure to actually make this transition a reality.
It sounds like these transition pathway studies are like essential for turning this vision into like a concrete plan.
Absolutely. And speaking of planning the paper, also highlights the potential of regional power grids or interconnections to really take advantage of Africa's diverse resources.
Okay, help me understand this. How do regional power grids make a difference in this scenario?
So imagine this. If one region is experiencing low wind speeds, another region might have abundant sunshine.
Right.
By sharing energy across borders, you can balance each other out, smooth out that variability that's inherent in solar and wind power.
So if one country's solar farm is slacking, another country's wind turbines can pick up the slack.
Exactly. It's teamwork on a continental scale.
I love it.
It enhances reliability and can even reduce costs. But of course, there's a research gap here as well. We need more studies on how to manage these complex systems, especially with, a high percentage of renewables.
Yeah, it makes sense that like maintaining stability on a continental grid is like a whole other level of complexity.
Yeah.
What about the millions of people in Africa who still don't have access to electricity at all?
Right.
Where do they fit into this?
That's a crucial point. And the research highlights a gap in our understanding of how to best address the on-grid, off-grid divide.
Okay.
We need models that can analyze grid expansion and decentralized renewable systems together.
So it's not just about choosing one or the other, it's about figuring out the best mix of solutions.
Right. We need to understand how to expand the grid while also deploying things like mini grids and solar home systems to ensure everyone has access to clean and reliable energy.
Because ultimately the goal is to create a sustainable energy future that benefits everyone.
Exactly. And speaking of benefits, we can't forget about the socioeconomic impacts of this transition.
Yeah.
The paper stresses the need for more research on how this shift will affect jobs, poverty, and local communities.
This is where like the human element comes in. It's not just about technology and infrastructure, it's about people's lives.
Precisely. We need to ensure that the transition to 100% renewable energy is just and equitable for everyone.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground here, but there's still so much more to unpack in this research paper.
Definitely.
We've only just scratched the surface. There are some fascinating insights to come, so stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we were talking about like the social and economic impacts of a 100% renewable energy transition in Africa. And it's easy to get caught up in the technology and all that.
Right.
But we can't forget about like the human side of this whole story.
Absolutely. And this Jewel paper really digs into some interesting findings on, the economic feasibility of these systems.
Okay.
And how they could actually benefit people's lives.
This is where it gets really interesting for me because like the cost aspect is often like a huge barrier to these big transitions,
Yeah.
So is it actually like realistic for Africa to make this shift financially?
The research suggests that it could be incredibly cost effective.
Okay.
And not just in the long run. I mean, the cost of renewable energy technologies, especially solar and wind power, has just dropped dramatically in recent years.
Yeah, I've heard that renewable energy is already like the cheapest source of electricity in some parts of the world.
Right.
Could that be true for Africa as well?
It's already happening in some places. The paper highlights something called the levelized cost of electricity, or LCOE.
Okay.
It's basically a way to compare the total lifetime cost of different ways to generate electricity.
So it's not just about the initial cost of like building a solar farm or a wind turbine. You're also factoring in like the operating and maintenance costs over its entire lifespan.
Exactly. And when you look at it that way, renewable energy often comes out on top.
Okay.
In many cases, the LCOE for 100% renewable energy systems in Africa is lower than continuing with business as usual.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any like concrete examples of how much money could be saved?
Yeah, the paper cites examples where switching to 100% renewable energy could reduce electricity costs by as much as 24 to 66%.
Wow, those are huge numbers.
Yeah, that's significant savings.
So it sounds like a renewable energy transition could be like a win-win, good for the environment and good for people's wallets.
Exactly. It's a powerful argument for policymakers and investors.
Right.
And remember, those costs are only going to continue to fall as technology improves.
Yeah, so it sounds like a smart investment for the future, but those cost savings depend on like careful planning, right?
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier about those transition pathway studies.
Right, and those studies can really help guide those investments and make sure those cost savings are realized.
Okay.
Think of it like investing in the stock market.
Yeah.
You need to research and choose the right stocks. if you want to see returns.
So this research paper is like a guide for investors to help them navigate the complexities of renewable energy in Africa.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It provides the information needed to make informed decisions that actually benefit everyone.
Cool. And speaking of a brighter future, the paper also explores a fascinating concept, a solar-driven economy in Africa. Tell me more about this. It's something that really captured my imagination.
Yeah, so imagine harnessing Africa's abundant sunshine, not just for electricity, but for producing things like hydrogen fuels, chemicals, even building materials.
Wow, it's like using sunlight to power industries and create jobs. That's a game changer.
Exactly. The paper highlights this emerging research on the potential for what they call a solar to X economy in Africa.
Solar to X?
Yeah, where X can represent any number of valuable products.
Okay. It makes you wonder, instead of exporting raw materials, could Africa become like a global exporter of solar-powered products?
It's definitely a possibility. It could create new industries, generate jobs, boost economic growth across the continent.
Yeah.
It's an exciting vision for a future where Africa is leading the world in renewable energy and sustainable development.
That sounds amazing, but realistically, what needs to happen to make this vision a reality?
Well, we need to address those research gaps we talked about earlier. More studies on the technical aspects, the economic viability, the social and environmental impacts of these solar to X pathways.
So it seems like a lot of pieces need to fall into place.
It does, but the potential is definitely there. And the research also suggests that international collaboration is going to be key to accelerating progress.
Okay.
Sharing knowledge, expertise, and resources could really help Africa overcome the challenges and seize the opportunities.
This is where partnerships between universities or research institutions, companies, governments become so important.
Absolutely. It's a global effort working together. We can turn this vision of 100% renewable energy future for Africa into a reality, and that benefits all of us.
It's exciting to think about what could be accomplished with that kind of collaboration. We've covered a lot of fascinating information in this episode so far, but we're not done yet.
Not even close.
There's still so much more to explore in this research paper, so stay tuned for part 3, where we'll delve even deeper into this fascinating topic.
Welcome back, everyone. So we are wrapping up our deep dive into 100% renewable energy systems in Africa. And trust me, this final part is where things get really, really interesting.
Yeah, this is where it gets really cool, because this research actually dives into specific regions and their unique challenges.
Okay, cool.
So let's take the West Africa power pool as an example. We're talking about countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, and others.
Okay, so what are the key takeaways for this region? Like we talked earlier about the huge potential of solar PV in Africa. Mm-hmm. Does that hold true for West Africa?
It absolutely does. West Africa has some of the highest levels of solar irradiation in the world.
Wow.
So it's ideal for solar energy production. I think about those vast landscapes just bathed in sunshine, transformed into massive solar energy hubs.
It's an incredible image.
Yeah.
What about wind power? Does that play a role in West Africa's energy future? Definitely wind power also holds significant potential, especially along the coast and in certain inland areas. So it's like harnessing the power of both the sun and the wind to fuel a region.
I'm curious about hydropower, because that's currently part of the energy mix in several West African countries. Does the research address the role of hydropower in this transition?
It does. And while hydropower is a renewable source, the paper does highlight some challenges with relying too heavily on it.
Okay.
Large-scale hydropower projects like dams can have significant impact on the environment and communities.
So even though it's renewable, it's not without its drawbacks. What are some of the concerns with hydropower in this region?
Well, think about the potential for displacement of communities, disruption of ecosystems, even changes in water availability downstream. You also have the issue of climate change, potentially affecting rainfall patterns, which could make hydropower less reliable in the future.
So diversifying the energy mix with solar, wind, and other renewables is crucial for West Africa. It's about balancing those energy needs with environmental sustainability.
Exactly. And that leads us to another important aspect of the West Africa case study interconnections. We talked about regional power grids earlier, and the West Africa Power Pool is a great example of this in action.
Right. If one country is experiencing low wind speeds, another might have abundant sunshine. So sharing energy across borders can smooth out those fluctuations and create a more reliable system.
Precisely. They are already interconnected to some extent, and the paper suggests that expanding and strengthening those connections could unlock significant benefits.
It sounds like a smart strategy, but these large-scale projects must come with a pretty hefty price tag. Does the research talk about the cost of building and maintaining these regional grids?
Yeah, it does. And it acknowledges that, the initial investment is significant. However, it argues that the long-term cost savings
Right.
from, integrating more renewable energy and increasing reliability really outweigh those upfront costs.
So it's another example of investing in a more sustainable and resilient future. But it's not just about the money, is it? It sounds like these interconnections require a lot of cooperation between countries.
Absolutely. The West Africa Power Pool highlights the importance of considering those social and political factors in addition to the technical and economic ones. Energy projects can have a huge impact on people's lives and livelihoods.
It's a reminder that energy isn't just about like kilowatts and megawatts, it's about people.
Yeah, exactly. And the paper really emphasizes the need for inclusive decision-making involving everyone from governments and utilities to local communities and organizations.
Yeah, it sounds like transparency and collaboration are key to ensuring that everyone benefits from this energy transition. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways you think our listeners should remember?
Well, I think the research makes it very clear that Africa has a remarkable opportunity to become a global leader in renewable energy. The continent is rich in resources, has a growing population, and the chance to build a sustainable energy system from the ground up.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about all the possibilities, but it's also like a huge undertaking. So what needs to happen to turn this potential into a reality?
We need to address those research gaps that we've been talking about.
All right.
We need more research on specific technologies, grid management, the social impact, and those all-important transition pathways, fostering collaboration both within Africa and internationally, will also be key.
So it's about investing in research and development, building local expertise, creating policies that encourage investment and innovation.
Yeah, and it's about making sure those policies are equitable and that local communities are included in the decision-making process.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that everyone benefits.
This has been a really insightful journey. It feels like a 100% renewable energy future for Africa is within reach, but it's going to take like a collective effort to get there. What can our listeners do if they want to be part of that effort?
Well, there are so many ways to contribute, from supporting organizations that are working on renewable energy projects in Africa to advocating for policies that promote sustainable development. Even just staying informed and talking about these issues can make a difference.
It's about recognizing that a sustainable future for Africa is a sustainable future for all of us. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you found it as informative and thought-provoking as we did.